Good evening. Welcome to the Badger Politic. I'm Scott Stern.
My name is Paul Sickle. Welcome to the Badger Politic. As if we didn't need that redundancy, but as if we needed the redundancy. I'm a little tired. It's been a long day.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about your long day.
Oh, come on now. Everybody wants to talk about their own long day, not Paul Sickle's long day.
Sure.
I mean, they should want to talk about Paul Sickle's long day, but that's on them that they don't realize the great depth and import of my long days.
We know you're doing the big work. We appreciate everything you do.
Of course, as if no one else is. Yes.
We're all doing our part. But I want to call attention to the fact this is episode number 10. We have made it
to 10.
10 episodes.
So we get a second place value. Past the decimal point. We get a 0 after it.
I didn't. I apologize in advance. I didn't bring your participation award or the cake to celebrate this benchmark.
And by second place value, I meant second digit. So yeah, okay. I'm kind of missing the cake. I could use it.
Yeah,
I think we should
sugar.
I think we should knock off and maybe go get the cake.
Yeah, I think Camp 4 is closed. So.
Yeah, we could go to Walmart, but then again, that would violate all we stand for and believe.
I could go to Speedway and get a pair of ho-hos or the.
Okay, that's a little better than Walmart.
And then we could stick candles in those.
Very good.
After
very
we're
good.
Done here.
Very good.
All right.
All right. So what's our agenda, Mr. Stearns?
Well, I mean, we've got a number of things to cover. There's the zombie healthcare bill that continues to chug right along. They're itching for a vote this week. However, I don't know if it's going to happen because typically they don't want to have a vote until they have the votes.
Right. So what's keeping them from getting the votes?
Well, today, Representative Billy Long, Republican Missouri, came out as a no vote on the GOP health care bill.
Isn't he a big Freedom Caucus kind of guy?
I don't know his bio, but the importance or the significance of this news is that he is number 22. And that is important. Because,
so whip count style.
Yeah,
they only have 22 to lose.
Yeah,
they have 21 to lose, not 22.
Right, they can't afford they can't afford him to vote no.
How many can they lose and still get through a bill? Is it 22 or is it 21?
I think it's 22.
So they can lose 22. They can't lose 23. So there's 22 that we know publicly. I'm curious to know what the other ones are.
The Hill has a breakdown.
Okay. So I haven't looked at it.
If you want to peruse it, but it's not looking good. It's there are a number of these congressmen and congresswomen that are from. I think
there's very few congresswomen. It's the Republican Party we're talking about. I don't remember them being too keen on promoting women in leadership lately.
Well, there's a few. But
there is Elena, the one who's going to leave, Ross Lathan.
Yep. She just announced she's not running, and that's
Clinton won the district by 20 points.
Well, we never want to say it's a sure thing because I think our reflex now is to not do that after November. Right. However, let's just say that looks like a very opportune. A very opportune district.
The strange thing is, if she's on her way out,
right?
Why wouldn't she be a prime? If she has kind of right wing values,
why wouldn't she just vote for it?
Party, yeah, vote for it because she doesn't care.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you have to say at least some of these quote unquote moderate Republicans are actually believe this is a bad idea.
Oh, that's true.
There is the idea.
So you think more than politics, the fact that 24 million people will lose their health care, 133 million may very well lose their health care, which might be you and me.
It must matter to some of them.
Conditions, right?
So there's that. But they were gunning for a vote on Wednesday,
right?
And the administration kept on saying that it's going to happen, and Spicer apparently in his press conference would not commit to that.
Sure.
So I wouldn't.
What would Melissa McCarthy have to say about that? That's my question. She would probably pull out the water gun.
It's fake news.
That's true. Although, honestly, she does it really well, and frankly, I'm not sure she's less credible on the set of Saturday Night Live than Sean Spicer is from the White House press room.
You're not wrong.
I mean, I feel like you just watch her stuff and be like, well, we got a fucked up country, but maybe it's not that bad.
Right.
But I watch Spicer, I get really worried. I swore, by the way, just now, a little like the current DNC chair once in a while does. Tommy P.
Do we want to talk about Tom Perez?
Well, we can put him. Let's put him in the parking lot.
Do you want to table that?
Table it.
Okay.
Put him in the.
We talked about it on our very first episode.
Right.
We had a little a bit of a contentious debate about whether or not it was the right choice, and I'm still optimistic that he's going to do a decent job when it comes down to it. But he's had a few missteps, I guess. I would put out there. So we'll see. I mean, we'll obviously continue to discuss the healthcare bill. There's
if this was a French Revolution, by the way, and the purists were killing off all the kind of lukewarm ones, you'd be the first to go, brother.
Do you think so?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Why is that?
I think the purists would have a big problem.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. Right now, it's the momentum is not on the side of the folks that are supporting the ACA bill, the America's Healthcare Act.
Right,
America's Healthcare Act. So hopefully we'll continue to hold the line, but obviously call your representatives.
Right.
Hold them accountable.
Tomorrow is a big call-in day.
It is.
A lot of people are going to jam the lines. I encourage everybody in the state of Wisconsin to do so.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have a line? You have got the number handy?
Let's
pull it up.
The Capitol switchboard.
Hit up that one. That's a good one. I got one too. I just don't know if I have any reception in this bunker. He's got this. His corporate friends hooked him up with one of these satellite phones. And in this bunker, he can still get a signal. So.
You can always call the Capitol switchboard, area code 202-224-3121, and they will direct you to the person
222, what is it? 202.
202-224-3121.
202-224.
3121.
3121.
You can give them your zip code, and they will direct you to the appropriate representative that represents you. You don't even need to do any legwork.
So what if I live in Gwen Moore's district? What do I want to do it anyway?
Absolutely,
because she's on our side.
Sure,
but we just want to give her a little.
But you always want to say thank you. You always want to say, hey,
be counted, right?
Well,
be counted. So what if I live in Paul Ryan's district? Obviously, he's pushing the bill. Do I still want to do it?
Of course.
What if I live in Gwen Moore's district, but I really want to call Speaker Ryan and give him a hard time?
Well, you can do that. However, when I worked on the Hill, I
am asking him because he has worked on the Hill. I haven't. I don't even know if there's a hill there. As far as there's a big building.
There is.
Okay.
You can call other congressmen.
Okay.
But honestly, it's a waste of time.
Even when they're in state, in the same metro area, you could easily buy a house like a mile down the road.
From an administrative standpoint, emails, phone calls, letters, they're all being sorted. And they're all being, and if you're from outside the district, it's being filtered out. It's either being thrown away, or it's being bucked over to the appropriate representative for that address.
Because I'm thinking like Paul Ryan. Okay, Paul Ryan's he's Racine, Kenosha, Janesville, but he also is like Greenfield and Oak Creek. So what if there's a very plausible chance I could live in Paul Ryan's district before the next election, for instance.
Yeah.
Why don't they care?
Because the 0.5 seconds when they're sorting through your feedback and glancing at it, I don't think they're thinking about the potential for you to buy a house. I think they're looking at your address and saying, this guy doesn't live here.
So, I mean, if
I have a
414 area code and I don't live in the...
You don't live there today? It doesn't matter.
All right.
So
you've heard it from a Hill staffer here.
Yeah.
However... Dirty little secret, Scott worked in the Senate. What the hell does he know about the House?
Oh.
All right, help me out. help yourself out.
It's the same system.
Okay.
Because people from other states call senators from outside their state as well. This is the same It's the same process.
Yeah, I could see there's a difference there. I'm just saying within a district,
But
especially in an urban area where...
It's not like Paul Ryan's, dipping into the mailroom and saying, like, hey, how many people from outside my district?
I don't know. In-state, in the same... He represents part of the Milwaukee metro area, a significant part of it.
It's an administrative process filtering out noise from outside the district. That's all it is.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that... Glad that the analytics of the lawmaking process have not come even close to matching the analytics business. I could literally move there just because I didn't like Paul Ryan if I wanted.
You could.
Because I've lived in the area. I mean, yes, you're not allowed to vote just for an election, but I could just say, I fucking hate Paul Ryan.
I'm going to buy a house there. And then...
I'm going to rent. I'm going to rent for the next, I'll sign a 2-year lease, whatever it takes.
Just for purposes of voting in 2018.
I'd move 5 minutes away. I could still go to work. Nothing would change in my life, really.
Well,
I mean, I guess my local watering hole might have to change. But I shouldn't spend that much time in a bar anyway, so come on.
Well, all right. Well, there's a challenge to you.
All right. You know what? I might do this.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm reluctant to do is they might district me out of Paul Ryan's district.
You think though? Well, given the given the amount of science that goes into redistricting these days, they may they just carve out your one house on whatever block.
Yeah, they know how to carve you out every 10 years, but they certainly don't know how to listen to you.
They'll throw you right back into Glenmore's district.
No kidding. Yeah. So I think
there you go.
Well, I ought to do it. I got 5 years. I mean, the next election under the new districts is into 2022, so I got 5 years.
Just have to put a Paul Ryan sign in your front yard
so
that they don't redistrict.
Do an over under. How much of the last 15 minutes? What percentage gets edited out?
I think at least half.
Okay. Well, and the editor just said that, so I would definitely take the over. All right. So there we go.
No, this is all good stuff.
I just want to, before we move off of healthcare real quick, let's say they pass the bill.
Yeah.
They get the 216 votes. What happens in the Senate?
It dies.
Yeah.
And this is why, this is another reason why these moderates...
That's a reason to believe it might pass the House, because why the fuck not?
I think it's a reason to think it won't pass the House, because what's the most recent example of a kind of a toxic vote that came back to bite people in the ass? And it was the cap and trade bill. Pelosi and the House leadership made a lot of Democrats take a very tough vote. And then, what happens in 2010? They lost the House. So it was a symbolic vote because the thing was never going anywhere in the Senate.
Right.
So there's basically no incentive for these guys when they may or may not win their seat back next year.
Right.
They don't have any incentive to do that. They have every incentive to just stand in the way.
So you really think this bill can't make it through?
It's
the Senate? Doomed.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Is there anything they could do to bring it back to a conference committee?
A conference.
So let's explain what a conference
committee would be. So the House passes the bill and then the Senate edits the shit out of it, so it's completely different.
So they pass a different bill that's to the same end,
and then it's basically like you have to reconcile the differences between the House version and the Senate version.
And the Obamacare actually did, I believe, emerge from a conference committee.
They had to do reconciliation. So the House had to pass the Senate version. So that because remember, Ted Kennedy.
The conference committee got short circuited.
Ted Kennedy died.
Right, and then we wound up with Martha Coakley running for the Senate seat.
Scott Brown got elected.
Who somehow or another, the Democratic Party decided it was a good idea to rerun for governor of Massachusetts, and now we have a Republican governor of Massachusetts.
Right.
Now, if I'm thinking it won't pass the Senate, why wouldn't it be a good idea then to have it pass the House, let all these Republicans go on the record for voting for something that's pretty awful.
Mm-hmm.
Let them run for re-election on that. Hey, Congressman Mike Gallagher in the Green Bay area, he voted to take away health care for...
You're saying it'd be good for us.
I know.
I
mean, for 133 million people with pre-existing conditions, including... 28,000 people in Green Bay alone. I mean, that would be...
Yeah, I mean, you have an actual vote. However, you have a lot of these people.
That'd be good for us, I think.
It would be, except
as long as it doesn't actually become law. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, of course, although you risk that with every vote you take, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are already on record anyway. I mean, do they actually have to take a vote for them to?
Well, Gallagher
to
won't
fall?
say. That's the thing about him. He won't say.
Yeah.
So let him. I don't believe he's one of the 22. I believe he's rumored to be one of the many more that don't want to do it.
Duffy's a yes?
I'm almost certain he's a yes. Yeah. I think they're all yeses except Gallagher.
Well, Brothman's a yes.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're all yeses except Gallagher.
Yeah.
And Gallagher...
Sensenbrenner's a yes.
And Gallagher is because he's a very, very hardcore social, I think Catholic conservative from the Green Bay Appleton area, but he's also... presents himself as kind of a pragmatic working person's, candidate, congressman who doesn't want to burn down the bridge. He doesn't want to see St. Mary's Hospital on the west side of Green Bay have to close because the revenue will be shot.
That's how he got elected in a district like that.
A pragmatic person, right?
Yeah.
And so, there are, I actually think in the Rust Belt, a fair number of. It's kind of like a mostly industrial, somewhat agricultural district in the upper Midwest. And I think that it's the only one in Wisconsin right now that's like that. I mean, Ryan's district would be like that if he wasn't the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
But Ryan's district actually would be just like that if it's because he's the Speaker of the House that he has to push this shit.
Yeah.
But he himself, if he wasn't the Speaker of the House, probably wouldn't want to vote for it. And that's probably why he's getting a bunch of deserters.
For folks outside Wisconsin, just to give you some background, so we have eight congressional districts in the state of Wisconsin.
So you've got 5 solidly safe Republican seats, basically.
Yeah.
Paul Ryan is in the most competitive seat held by a Republican in the state.
Yeah.
He's the Speaker of the House, and got his own district is more competitive than the other 4 Republicans who represent districts in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
At least according to the 2016 results.
Although you would expect somebody of his stature is going to see a lot of resources thrown in his direction as a means of disincentive. Providing a disincentive for people to oppose.
There is a law of diminishing returns, however.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think Ryan could be vulnerable in a general election.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so weird. It'd be a wave, but it happened
The last Speaker of the House to lose re-election was Tom Foley.
Right.
In 1994, when Newt Gingrich...
White-haired Tom Foley.
Yeah.
You looked at the back of his head, you saw an image of yourself. It was so glistening. Anyway, Tom Foley is a very old man.
Bottom line, it's not unheard of. And then on the Senate side, you had Tom Daschle lose in 2004,
right?
And he was the Democratic leader.
So you've seen members of the Democrat Party lose, and I'm saying Democrat Party.
I was going to say
it's a pejorative because I don't know. They frustrate me almost as much as the Republicans. Actually, they frustrate me a lot more than the Republicans.
Well, of course, because you're rooting for them. So
sort of. I can't.
Well, when they do wrong, it hurts more.
Or just shoot them. I don't even know if they do wrong. They just don't help them their own cause half the time. They're just pathetic. A pathetic party. I mean, really. I mean, I want to get behind it, but they've found ways to win the White House, but it's mostly on personality.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. It's mostly about personality. It's not about the Democrat.
Not the issues.
It's not the Democrat Party that got them there.
Yeah.
It's the candidates.
I
just said it twice. Now I'm feeling like I'm Sarah Palin.
We're gonna get so much hate mail.
Yeah. All right. So who's the Democrat candidate for
county sheriff?
Exactly, for sheriff or governor. All right. So let's move along. We've given a lot for Scott to edit out.
So. You want to go into the governor's race, or do you want to go into...
well, what was our next topic?
We got Sheriff Clark. There's some news on that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk. He is a Democrat. The Democrat Party let him win the nomination 3 or 4 times in a row.
So David Clark for for people unfamiliar, was appointed
People abroad.
Yes, and so Sheriff Clark was appointed by former Governor McCallum back in, was it 2002?
A Republican governor.
So he appointed Clark, and he is run as a Democrat, even though he's a Democrat on paper, and that's about as far as that goes. He was an ardent Trump supporter. Has nothing in common on the issues with the Democratic
strangely
Party.
enough, though, he's won every Democratic primary that he's run it, which is really bizarre, honestly.
But
but it is true. He does run in the Democratic primary.
He does.
It's true.
It seems like a joke, but it's not, because he's a sheriff running in Milwaukee County, and he knows he can't win as running as a Republican.
And so what are Clark's politics again, Scott?
He's probably one of the most outspoken pro-Trump supporters we have in this area.
I mean, this guy is a far-out right-wing fascist.
He is. He's ridiculous. And he's gotten more and more so. I think when he first came in, people thought that, he's a Democrat appointed by a Republican governor, but, whatever. He's the sheriff, so it's not the most political of positions.
It was because it wasn't seen as a priority.
Yeah.
That was a big reason.
But over time, he has just gotten more and more outspoken and just more and more outlandish.
He's always been, though, pretty hard on the right.
Yeah.
So he's a black male in his probably late 50s. He's known for being militantly pro-NRA, militantly anti-immigrant. What did he call the Black Lives Matter movement? Did he call it like a terrorist movement, I believe?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, he sees the American politics from an extremely right-wing viewpoint. He's like a Joe McCarthy kind of person, really.
He's gotten really good at self-promotion.
Yeah.
And he's putting out a book, and he was vocally for Trump in the most recent election.
And he wants to use the 287 thing in the U.S. federal code to take the sheriff's department and enforce basically immigration controls at the local level. So he can raid, which is not a small deal in Milwaukee. He's Milwaukee County sheriff, not Wisconsin's sheriff or whatever. It's a big deal in Milwaukee County because
absolutely
a disproportionate share of Milwaukee County is foreign born as compared to the rest of the state.
Yep.
I know it's probably about 10% Latino. It's about 30% black. The county, the city is more like black is I think 40%. Mm-hmm. Latino is somewhere around 20%.
Yep.
And
40%.
Asian and others, Asian and other non-white groups are another 10%. Whites are about 30%.
So, in the process of doing all this, I'll just call it self-promotion. There's been some goings on at the county level, and one of the things that came out, so there's been I think 4 deaths recently in the
last year and a half.
In the last year and a half, at the county jail, and the details of one in particular came out.
Clark, as county sheriff, is in charge of the county jail.
He is.
He's the top person there.
That's one of his primary
not
functions.
The DA. That's him. The DA's job is to convict people, not to run the jail.
Right.
So not the county executive. Right. It's sheriff. It's the sheriff.
The sheriff is in charge. That is the day job. And recently, so this happened last year. An inmate in particular who was arrested. He was put in the county jail. He was, I believe, he had shot up. He'd fired some shots at the Potawatomi Casino,
which is not a good thing to do. No. But he got no water for 8 days.
Terrell Thomas was his name, and yes, they cut off his water because he apparently tried to flood his previous cell.
Which may be a really big problem,
sure.
But
and he has some mental health issues,
right?
And so they were ordered to cut off his water,
regardless of whether he has mental health issues or not. We have people on death row that don't get their water. Jeffrey Dahmer did not get his water cut off,
right?
Charles Manson doesn't get his water cut off. It's not something we do. We don't do that. We don't torture. I guess maybe now we do, but that is what it. That's what it is. Is like we could have Osama bin Laden right here, right now. Obviously, right. We don't do that as a civilized society. We just don't.
No, and this guy had his water cut off for 7 days. 7 days,
and then he died.
And he died on the 8th day. He died
because he had no water.
He had no water, and because he had a what sounds like a severe mental breakdown, given his health history.
And he was probably dehydrated.
He was unable to communicate, and
well, and during the late stages, he was probably dehydrated for 4 of those 7 days.
I would expect. Can you imagine going a week without water?
Right, exactly. I can't imagine going a day. I mean, you should. I think you go 2 days without water in your system.
He was put in solitary. He was put in solitary confinement. He was also not allowed out. I think typically you get when you're in solitary. I believe the procedure is you get at least an hour a day of activity outside of solitary. Okay. That didn't happen.
So Scott, when did this occur?
This happened, I believe. I want to say April of last year.
April 2016.
I believe so. I think that's
okay. So what was so David Clark had been the sheriff of Milwaukee County since 2002? So that was about 14 years that David Clark has had to administer the sheriff's department in the jails. And even after 14 years, he didn't have the proper safety for that to happen. However, you also have David Clark was up to something else in 2016. Can you talk about it? What was David Clark doing during much of 2016?
Campaigning for Donald Trump.
Yeah. And how many days was he in Milwaukee County? I don't know if you have the answer.
That would be a fine audit to take place.
I think it's actually been reported, and as I recall, it was a small fraction of working hours that he was even plausibly in Milwaukee County.
So this is what happens when you have an absentee sheriff running your county jail.
And why was he absentee? Not just because he wanted to take a vacation, but because he wanted to do what?
He had higher priorities. He wanted a position in the Trump administration.
He wanted to hang out with Donald
Absolutely.
Trump.
And lo and behold,
even Scott Walker wasn't good enough for him. He had to hang out with Donald Trump.
We got word this week that he is under consideration for a position on the Department of Homeland Security.
So you scratched Trump's back. You let people die in your jail. We also, by the way, had a baby die shortly after birth.
Yeah.
In that same jail within, I believe, that same year.
Yes.
We had 4 deaths last year, I believe. Yeah. One of which, I mean, here we're talking about a guy. I mean, it's kind of unconscionable. You'd take, water from a man for 8 days. I mean, it's more than unconscionable. Even if he did have mental illness, or obviously, especially if he had mental illness, even if he did shoot up, parts of a casino, we also have a baby that died, that was born in those same cells to a female inmate that was not cared for, and it died.
So yeah, this just all plays into a track record that he has, where he's just. And he ran for mayor. He ran for mayor at one point. He's a guy that's always.
And he was a righty then too. Yeah, he was a crazy righty then.
He's always just the guy kind of looking for the next best thing, and then that's not necessarily unusual. I mean, politicians are always kind of looking to move up, or a lot of them are looking to move up. However, this guy has neglected his duties. He has let the county jail fall into
extreme
a mode of dysfunction that I think is unparalleled across the country.
Clark is completely disgusting. We had a big-ass march today. One of the things he's really bad about, too, is that he wants to do like Sheriff Arpaio, or he wants to go like that guy in Phoenix.
Yeah.
He wants to crack down on illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. And when you have got the President of the United States also...
cities.
Right. You have the President of the United States now talking the same rhetoric. Then he's a real and present danger to about 100,000 people in Milwaukee County, which is more than 10% of the population.
Right.
And the fastest growing segment of the population in Milwaukee County. And frankly, one of the most important segments, economically, they're one of the groups that really like breathe life into the city of Milwaukee. These are immigrant communities, mostly Latino, some Asian, some African as well. They live with us, and some Middle Eastern, also some European. They live with us and amongst us, and they really make our city better, I believe, Scott.
I don't disagree. I mean, you were there was a huge event today.
And this same man who kills a guy, or lets the people die, including the baby, including the man without water for 8 days, die in his jails.
Yeah.
And 2 others, which we haven't even spent time on. Either.
Exactly.
Not that their lives mattered less, by the way.
No, but they're not getting the press, obviously, that some of these others are. So just to follow through on the particular case we were talking about, so there was an inquest over the past week, and the jury came back today and recommended charges against seven personnel at the jail.
But what about Sheriff Clark? He's the man in charge. Shit rolls downhill. Come on.
Well, yeah, but
I got kind of a problem with that, honestly.
That's fair. But he, from his perspective, he wasn't involved. He didn't make the call. He was off gallivanting, promoting his book. He's off.
That's the
campaigning.
problem. Sometimes people. I actually think working in a jail could probably be a hard job, especially in a large city with a fairly high crime rate. Could be a very hard job. I'm not excusing their behavior, but my point is I would think that the top man has not only a moral imperative, but a technical, just a basic professional imperative, as you were saying.
He's the CEO, right? So
to make sure this is in a work environment where people can actually treat people.
He sets the tone.
Despite their frustrations, they can treat people with basic human dignity, so that we don't have babies dying, so we don't have men that have been starved for water for 8 days, dying. So we don't have that happening. That's what I'm asking from my sheriff, is that he at least spends that much time in the county, not campaigning for President Trump.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if he gets this new job. He's trying to.
He's got a book. He's got a book. He's promoting. So he's got the guy can at least. The worst he can do is command a few grand per speech, kind of like President Obama.
Well, worst case scenario, he gets an open slot on Fox News that are
right. Well, then that's even better when Obama got.
Because those clearly are opening up.
We never even brought that up as a topic tonight. Obama's distasteful, and I do believe it was kind of a distasteful choice to do the speech, even though he is my favorite president in my lifetime. No question.
Yeah.
But we can debate whether it was tasteful or not. But anyway, I think that
I'd like to hear more about. Okay, so there was a big event today.
Mm-hmm.
Which you were present for, which was related to what we were talking about with Sheriff Clark and his ambition to put the kibosh on sanctuary cities and employ law enforcement to crack down on undocumented workers. And
right.
What was your takeaway from that today?
I don't take a lot of optimism from it.
No?
No, the whole reason that all these people are here is because they feel incredibly threatened.
Sure.
And they're incredibly courageous. That's the only bit of optimism I
How many
take.
people did they say were there today? About 10,000?
Well, I've heard estimates anywhere from 20 to 30,000.
Okay.
I've also heard some media estimates going closer to 10,000. Yeah, actually, WTMJ4 said hundreds, which is... Well, it was hundreds, but it was many. It was definitely hundreds times 10 times 10 times 10. It was a lot of... It was several thousand people. It was a pretty impressive march. Probably not the biggest they've had. However, they also brought out 20,000 people about a month and a half ago on Valentine's Day, actually.
The weather was pretty poor today, too.
Today, they got hailed on.
Yeah.
On Valentine's Day, they were out. They were out after a huge cold snap in January, several thousand before Trump was even inaugurated. Mm-hmm. They ran the same route. And they've been doing the same thing as Clark, which is probably why the local media has been a little bit bored by the story, so to speak, even though it was a national story.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting because I knew it was going on, and
CNN covered it. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel barely did.
Yeah, I checked in midday with our local newspaper, and there was butt
It was
kiss.
shameful.
There was nothing.
Perhaps it's that CNN covered it, and the Trump administration has put CNN in the doghouse, and the Journal-Sentinel is like, man, we really need to have our White House correspondents getting treated better. Because we're the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Right.
We're owned by... Well, actually, if you start thinking about it, they're owned by Gannett, which owns like half the papers, the USA Today. Maybe there's something to that one.
It's basically a USA Today subsidiary at this point.
Which is kind of a shame, but that's...
So you don't see a reason for optimism after today? I mean, I know that it's kind of a recurring series with these marches, and it's giving voice to a lot of anxiety that's out there, obviously.
It's not about optimism. It's about admiration.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Okay.
Is admiration.
These people, the fact that these people continue to come out and put themselves
they
out
were
there.
in a hailstorm. These people, honestly, a large number of these folks are probably vulnerable under the current ICE raids, under the current crackdown.
But the stakes are high, and they obviously feel that it's like the time is now to make their voices heard.
It's possible that they themselves aren't, but it's almost certain that people they love and know are vulnerable. Yeah. These people are there, and they are marching, and they are taking... Yes, you could say they're protecting their own interests, but you know what? They're still taking a risk.
Yeah.
And they are and they're taking the time to do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is. It's nothing short of admiration that I can, and I say that in the highest sense. Yeah. When I look at the folks in this march, I just think of constant admiration, and because the truth is, when we talk about politics a lot, a lot of us, we think we know the outcome. We know what's going to happen here or there. We don't know the outcome here. And the people in this march, I don't think they know the outcome.
No.
And if they know the outcome, even if they feel pretty confident in the outcome for themselves personally, which some of them may, they certainly don't know the outcome for the loved ones that for which they might be marching as well. Very true. They are scared, and they're doing the best thing you can do when you're scared is take action.
Yep. We don't know how this is all going to end.
Right. No, after that was over, now a couple hours later, I went with a few people who are very close to me to the hearing on Walker's plan to drug test people for Medicaid. And then also, on top of that, if that wasn't enough, to enact restrictions on receipt of Medicaid, Badger Care,
right?
Time limits, even if you test cleanly, so to speak. You know, I mean, and somewhere in here, it's like you read the thing, and it looks like, wow, if you're just not enterprising enough. Well, some people have long-term conditions. Yeah. Guess what? Long-term conditions really... I'm sorry, but their medical conditions will not respect the time limit.
No,
Governor Walker wants to place on them.
Exactly. They don't have that luxury.
No, right. And so I saw two people get up today. A woman from the north side of town, a woman from the south suburbs, I believe south suburbs, and each of them, they're long-term health care givers. I saw a lot of other good speakers too at that thing. Give powerful statements on why it was bad. And none of them looked like drug addicts or even spoke about drug addiction themselves. But they brought up points like, what about my friend who has cancer? Right. Drug tests aren't always reliable. What if there's people in the house doing drugs, but my friend still has cancer? So we're going to cut off her treatment for... Then the next speaker got up and pointed out how she's been taking care of her mother with Alzheimer's, and she herself has cancer, breast cancer. And so this is like, there's a human toll here. Yeah. And I guess I would wish that the party that always talks about morality would think about, I hate to even get partisan on this. It's just about being human. Other topics, real quick, that we should have touched on, or should maybe preview for next week.
Governor's race. I mean, that's always a hot button. We seem to be still at a loss in terms of who's going to run next year. But I think there's a few people, potential candidates, but that nobody's got an incentive at this point, at this stage, to announce because you're going to get a lot of negative media against you at this point.
A little bit. I don't know if I completely agree. I think at this point it might be good for folks to start getting out there and saying so they could, especially if they're more like non-traditional candidates. Mm-hmm. I was in a meeting the other day and somebody said, basically Scott Walker beat the same person all 3 times.
Yeah.
And if you look at the numbers, by the exact same percentage all 3 times, almost to a T.
What's the definition of insanity?
Yeah, exactly. So older white people that are really successful. I'm not saying that all of them are bad, but it was just, there's something about this establishment Democratic Party where they found people with a certain level of success that they pushed as candidates.
Yeah.
I think we need something different. That doesn't mean we can't have a white candidate. Doesn't mean we can't have a male candidate. Doesn't mean we can't have an older candidate. It doesn't mean we can't have an old white male candidate. It doesn't mean any of these things. It just means we have to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And there may be people who aren't white, who aren't male, or who aren't older.
Yeah.
Or who are some different mix of those 3, and there might be 5 other demographic categories too that are important. But there may be something different that wouldn't look like a typical candidate for governor.
Sure.
And that's what we need to start thinking about.
Well, and that's going to be an ongoing thing because we're about a year and a half out to that election. So there's a lot of
it's so important. I really don't think you do until you beat the Republicans. The Democrat Party has no future until they beat the Republicans in the governorship. Yeah. I don't fucking care, honestly, Scott. I don't. If they're independents like Angus King or Bernie Sanders, I don't care who the fuck they are. The governor of Alaska, their Governor Walker, is a pretty good guy. He's a moderate, conservative independent who beat the shit out of a Republican.
Yeah.
To get get in office. Mm-hmm. Hence, you have no more Sarah Palin politics up there in Alaska. You've got you got better than Scott Walker politics too up there.
Yeah.
Better than the frickin' governor of Illinois too while we're at it. Sure. I mean, so we got to think about what do we do for a credible opposition. Yeah. I think it's got to be a Democrat, but it's got to be somebody different than we normally.
All options are on the table.
Right. Yeah. Any more thoughts? You run the agenda, Scott. I think we covered it. I just talked through it.
I think we covered it, and I appreciate what you had to say about the march today. I think it's inspiring. I think the people that came out.
Nothing but admiration for them,
absolutely.
Honestly. And I always thought that. I've been to probably like the 12th or 13th May Day march I've been to that they've done.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I always think it's really powerful, but this was one of the most, if not the most powerful.
Yeah.
It really, given the stakes, given the threats, they went right onto Sheriff Clark's turf.
Yeah.
And challenged him directly. They spoke truth to power. God bless them. Those people are real Americans in my book.
Absolutely.
I have nothing but admiration for them.
Great stuff. All right. On that note, I think we're going to wrap up this week, and we'll be back next week for more good stuff. I'm sure we'll touch on the governor's race. We'll probably have another healthcare update because who knows when or if they'll take a vote. We'll just continue to monitor that situation, and more to come.
Until then, forward.